So, well, Happy New Year, everyone. It is a new year, and, I think it's interesting sometimes the amount of energy, without lack of a better word, that comes, all this focus around the new year and new beginnings. But if you kind of go back to different indigenous practices, there's always been this idea of cycles, right? And cycles in life. And I think that there is, especially when you look at nature, there is so much to be learned about leaning into these cycles, the rhythm of life. There's times in life that summer for us here, lots of daylight. I could be out until 9 o'clock and not realize, it's 9 o'clock, right? And just swimming at the pool, having a grand day. And then winter, all of a sudden it gets dark at 5 and I feel like it's time for bed. I'm like, what is going on? But I must trust Mother Nature that if I were to go at 120% until 9 p.m. every day, that would be unsustainable, right? So instead, we have these cycles, and we get to lean into more times of rest, of introspection, contemplation, that the winter and the dark months bring. And then we have these moments of transition where we get to mark things like endings and beginnings. So last week we had our burning bowl ceremony where we let go of those patterns and ideas and beliefs and habits that no longer serve us, those things that we consciously are saying we do not want to bring that into this new year. And today we have the opportunity to step into the new year with a conscious intention. So our theme this year with Centers for Spiritual Living, that's the greater organization that we are a part of, the theme is called A Grand Rising. And this idea of grand rising is a greeting similar to good morning, and it's mostly in the Black community, and it allows us to start our day with intention, right? A grand rising. And it's kind of based on various spiritual meanings, but one of them being this African spirituality around the idea that when we sleep, when we dream, that although our body is resting, our spirit and our soul is kind of traveling. It's still awake, doing its thing. Perhaps that's what our dreams are. And so grand rising is an expression to speak to this idea that our spirit has returned to our body and we rise up, and it's a greeting, a gratitude for greeting the day anew in our body as we are now. And this idea as a theme for spiritual Centers for Spiritual Living this year came from one of our ministers, my colleague, Reverend KC. Shout out to KC, and she's in our Facebook community group too. And she shares a story that inspired her of 3 Black youth in a homeless shelter in Oklahoma City. They connected, became roommates, and immediately found community and support. They had a very optimistic viewpoint on their life, although their circumstances may have led others to believe otherwise. They really focused on their own understanding of spirit and God within themselves. And through supporting each other and lifting each other up, were able to navigate the complicated social services systems in order to get their basic needs met. Managing their challenges, they were able to lean into spiritual practices. They put up vision boards on their walls. They sought spiritual wisdom through oracle cards and really used affirmations to affirm each other on their life path. One of them found a TikTok that inspired them with this greeting of Grand Rising. And they began to adapt this greeting, Grand Rising, and they invited the shelter staff as well, instead of saying good morning, to say Grand Rising. They created a large poster in their room that said Grand Rising. And not long after that, one of the youth reunited with their family, and then the other two were able to set out for an adventure in California. And they have kept in touch with the shelter staff, who has heard that they are doing very well. So this story of these three young people who, despite circumstances, applied spiritual practice and awareness and community to lift them out of those circumstances into a life that works for them. That story is what inspired this theme, Grand Rising. And so how can we take this idea and incorporate it in our own lives, yes? Whatever our circumstances may be, so that we can rise above the lack, the limitation that is appearing in our lives, to rise with gratitude, with optimism, to start our day with such intention that it lifts us out of the mundane. In my family, when my daughter was 3, we read this Care Bears book that said, start each day with a happy note. So that kind of became our mantra, start each day with a happy note. And still we remind each other when the grumpies happen in the morning. And it's not always her, often it's the adults, right? We wake up just as grumpy, don't get that twisted. And we have an agreement, that we can remind each other, start each day with a happy note. So I invite you to reflect on your own morning when you wake up. Are you having a grand rising? Are you starting each day on a happy note? Or are you picking right back up on what happened yesterday? So we have this wonderful thing called sleep, where everything quiets. We can stop the meh of our mind or whatever is going on, and even, aches and pains there. When we are able to finally fall asleep, everything quiets and stills. And it's kind of like New Year's Eve every night. So instead of just making intentions in the new year, we can do this every morning. We can wake up and notice, become aware, intentional of how we want to create our day. I think of it kind of like literal baggage, right? So whatever's occurred in the day, we have all our stories, all of our life, and it's like, to go to sleep, we actually have to set our baggage down by the side of the bed, fall asleep. Do we wake up? Do we pick that right back up? Or are we willing to allow something new? How would our day unfold if we were to literally let the past be the past and start with a conscious intention? Speak our affirmations. Take a moment of breath, meditation, affirmation, prayer, whatever the practice is that really resonates for you. Take a moment just to love yourself up, Maybe you want to create a little sacred place, or even just on your mirror when you go to brush your teeth, you can have some affirmations. You can have a few things there that remind you of the truth of who you are. That can, instead of turning to the default programming of our mind that wants to blah, 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 blah. What do I have to do today based on who I was yesterday and this and that, the other, to really have a clean slate. Happy New Year, Grand Rising, Happy New Day. What do we want to create? So this time of year, we're often setting intentions, and they can be very, the word that's coming to me isn't quite right, but like physically focused, but materially focused, maybe that's the better word. If we were to look to advertising and TV, and we're just inundated with messages, right? And so marketing has kind of taken this idea of a new year to say, now's your chance to go to the gym and eat healthy and be a new you and all of these kind of things. And often what happens is we start out like, yeah, and then by February, we have exhausted our energy and we start to beat ourselves up, and then it just becomes this cycle of guilt and shame. So instead, what if we were to every day set these little micro intentions? Because truly, habits, if you want to shift your life, these habits have to happen in a consistent way. And often these big, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, have a lot of energy behind them for a minute and then collapse, and then we start all over with the self-doubt and the shame and the rah, 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 rah. So what I'm interested in this year is those micro moments, those ways that we can support each other with our intention, with shifting our beliefs and habits, but looking within to those, what's really driving that, is our desire to eat healthy really about health and wellness, or is it about some idea that we've been told that our body has to look a certain way? Is that based on a shame or fear or a lack or a doubt? Or is it driven by something that feels more pure and authentic to the truth of who we are in expression? And then how can we use our spiritual practices and tools to align with that, to keep us on our path and remind each other when we forget, because we will, life happens, and to remind each other, Grand Rising, each moment, not even every morning. Sometimes you might need to reset your day in the middle of the day. I'm thinking, like some kind of like a reset button. What can you do? Like carry with you something, have something that's like that reset button, just to like, hey, pause, stop, walk away, breathe. Breath is the ultimate reset. Remind ourselves of who we truly are. To be aware of what we're saying, what we're doing, and to begin to cultivate such awareness of the observer mind on our life that we can lovingly bring ourselves back in alignment with our values and our intentions. When we find ourselves saying or doing something that didn't quite feel right, or maybe later our mind looks up like, yeah, I was definitely in fear or lack or doubt when I was saying that. To then lovingly bring ourselves back to the truth. Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of the Science of Mind teaching, which is our core teaching here, he says in the Science of Mind textbook, we should learn to control our thought processes and bring them into line with reality, capital R, not lower R reality. Let's get that straight, right? Bring them in alignment with reality, love, wholeness, peace. Thought should tend more and more towards an affirmative attitude of mind that is positive, stable, and above all else, towards a real unity with spirit that is already complete and perfect. So starting our day with these positive intentions, with this intentional connection by communing with Spirit, by reminding ourselves of the truth of who we are, this can bring this energy with us throughout our day, letting love lead the way. And when we find ourselves caught up with something here or there, reset, breathe. This is how we truly apply these principles of science of mind to our life, by being aware throughout our day and knowing the power of our intention. So this is very different than perhaps a New Year's resolution. When we shift towards this idea of intention setting, it can create with a more consciousness, conscious awareness of that we are not going at it alone. It's not something we have to muscle through. When we set an intention, there's an energy within that intention that has its own resonance, its own vibration that we can align with and allow it to guide us forward. So another tool that we use often here is this practice of visioning. And I want to speak just briefly about the difference between visioning and visualization. Visualization is also a powerful tool. I'll start with that one because it may be something that's a little bit more familiar. So visualization is this idea of we have a desire and we're going to picture it in our mind's eye as if it is manifest. We're going to see ourselves on stage doing the thing, right? We're going to feel it with all of our senses. This is a very, powerful practice. And I like to kind of step back and before we move into visualization to do more of the listening, of the meditation, of the visioning practice to then guide what our intentions will be, that then we can apply the practices of visualizations and affirmations and affirmative prayer to then demonstrate or manifest in our lives. But if we don't do this first step, then often what we are visualizing or wanting to manifest may be coming more from our ego mind, right? Or what the world told us we should do, or this part of us that feels like I have to achieve something in order to be whole, so I have to do this with my life, so I'm going to visualize doing that. What is the motivation underneath that? Because that energy is what is actually going to be expressed at some point. So if we don't clear it up on the inside, we may go so far with these visualization practices and demonstrate the new car and the new job and the relationship. But if we don't do our inner healing and we've manifested this from a place of lack or doubt or unworthiness, that's going to show up at some point and it's all going to come crumbling down. So we start with visioning here. This community was built on the practice of visioning. Visioning is a practice, much like meditation, where we turn within and we listen, where we allow the divine idea for something in our lives to be known. We do this by going into this meditation practice and asking, right, what is God, Spirit, Life's highest vision for my life? What is the divine idea for my relationship, for my career, for my health? Visioning takes us back to that place of the infinite, of the wholeness, and allows us to listen and to create from that place what we desire, as opposed to from our, what some may call the ego mind, right? You kind of following? Yes. All right. And with visioning, there may be things that come forward that don't make sense to us. We may get a message or hear a lyric or see a symbol or something that, like, I don't get that. But the key is not to judge, just to write it down and let it guide you. And then all of a sudden you'll start to notice things. Okay, right? Because then we're working with the field of the infinite as opposed to trying to make something happen from our own will. We are surrendering and working with the infinite. And we're fully supported. And I'm not saying there's still going to be stuff when we do our visioning and we start moving forward if we're unhealed and we have those beliefs that, still need to be transformed about unworthiness and lack and doubt. That stuff will still come up. And when we remain open and aware to notice it, we don't have to believe it is the truth of who we are. We can say, there it is again. There's that belief. There's that idea. Reset. Lean into our practices. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. So this afternoon, we're going to be offering our visioning and vision board workshop. Vision boards, as it was mentioned in that story, is a powerful way to see what we desire in a way that it keeps telling our minds, it gives our minds those mental pictures of what we desire. And I'd say in today's world where now it's not only advertising, but every car and billboard, anything can be used as marketing now. Everything, right? So messages are just everywhere. And so the more that we can put in front of our mind's eye messages of truth that we desire, then it can help to quiet the noise and hone in. And the more that we can be intentional as we see those things, this is a practice I do, instead of just letting it kind of pass by in the subconscious mind, call it out, like, and that's not true, or notice it. Don't just let it kind of go through, they're trying to manipulate. That's not truth for me, right? Like, call it out, notice it, and then place in front of your heart and mind that which you desire. So these vision boards is a tool for that. And I'm going to lead you through a visioning process and then create our vision board. So unlike some people that do vision boards by just having an idea already, we're going to allow spirit to open, that picture. Ooh, what does this mean? And we might raise the vibration of the whole. And that's why I just want to mention as well, this book is so powerful, The 4 Pivots. So this is the book of the month, and Centers for Spiritual Living is offering a free book study on this book on Tuesday nights. It started last week. I'm not exactly sure, but I would imagine you can still try to sign up and get in for the next few weeks. And I'm going to be touching on some of these points, but Dr. Jen Wright also is the keynote speaker at the upcoming convention for CSL, which is going to be in Charleston, South Carolina in February. And the 4 pivots, reimagining justice, reimagining ourselves. He talks about this work, how when doing justice work in the world, if we do not first turn within and do our own healing, we are doing the work from a place of unhealed where all of our own traumas and stuff will come out and will affect the work and will not allow it to really make the impact we want it to make, right? So it's like this both and. So we often hear, you have to heal yourself first, and the work starts within ourselves. And it's not a selfish thing. We're not, just burying our heads in the sand and it's all about me, right? It's that paradox again. It's all about me and it's not all about me. So we turn within to heal. So the first pivot in the book is from lens to mirror. So lens being out there and the work that we do in the world and the justice work and those things that we desire for the world, and mirror being taking a moment to look within and to heal what comes up when we're doing that work in the world and we find ourselves getting really, perhaps there's a belief or something within ourselves to then look at, and how can we support ourselves in healing, transforming, leaning into community, leaning into our spiritual practices so that the work that we are doing in the collective is sustainable and can make the most benefit, yes? So I'm excited to dig in this month, this year on a grand rising, and just deciding where I'm going to go here. Let me share this quote. I'm going to wrap it up by just sharing this quote by Dr. Sean Ginwright. He says, "We need a fundamental shift in our values, a pivot in how we think, act, work, and connect. Despite what we've been told, the most critical mainspring of social change isn't coalition building or problem analysis, it's healing, deep, whole, systemic, inside and out." So this week, I invite you to create your own grand rising ritual. Lean into support of community if you need ideas. And start each day on a happy note, setting those intentions. So let's go into prayer. Take a nice deep breath. How good it is to know, right here, right now, there is one life, one source back of all things, this cosmic isness that is joy, that is peace, that is wholeness, that is love, that is freedom, that is creativity, this infinite source of pure potentiality that is the very world we live in, within and without. This one life that is living and moving and having its being right here, right now, in, as, and through all of us. So we take this moment to consciously align with this truth, to remember who I am. I am. I am peace. I am whole. I am love. I am worthy. I am free. So I know as we move throughout our week that we remain open and aware, noticing when it's time to hit that reset button, to breathe, and to once again align ourselves with the truth of wholeness, of love, of peace, of joy. I'm so grateful. So grateful to know this truth, so grateful to know that this prayer is manifest. As I release this word into the action of the law that always says, yes, my beloved, it is done, and it is so. And together we say, and so it is. Yes, grand rising.